Good morning, kids. You can put up your names and numbers for the purpose of your attendance. And we'll be starting your class within the next 3 minutes. By the time others are able to join, and inform your fellow students that the link will be turned off at 12:05. So they're requested to join at least before that. Okay. Even after informing that the link will be turned off, class fellows are not joining the class. Why? Should I turn off the link right now? That is what they want? Okay, fine. Take your time, take your time. I'll wait for 2 more minutes. Take your time. Okay, so we'll continue where we stopped yesterday. That is at various stages of evolution of money. We were talking about commodity money, and then we moved towards metallic money, right? So now I will take you to the next one, which is paper currency. Now, we are aware that paper currency came into existence as a part of evolution of currencies. But is anyone aware that this paper currency was introduced as a mode of payment by goldsmiths? Is anyone aware of this fact?
Can you repeat, ma'am?
Is anyone aware of the fact that the paper currency was first used by the goldsmith?
Ma'am, can you repeat?
I already did better. Is
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, didn't.
okay, yes. The paper currency was something which was initially used by the goldsmiths. Like we were having these gold coins, they were first made by goldsmiths and sahukars. So this paper currency was also something similar. What used to happen with the paper currency was that whenever certain amount of money was kept with the goldsmiths, they gave a receipt for the payment that this much amount of gold we are having from this particular person. They used to give that in a written format. And this receipt was later on used as payment purpose. That I'm having this much gold at this particular place and you can give me this article and collect the gold from that particular place. So that sort of arrangement was being made. But this is like seems to be a very good arrangement, right? Your money is kept with someone else and you're giving, like, it is similar. This sounds similar to the check thing, doesn't it? I'm not getting any replies. Or doesn't this source Goldsmith receipt thing seems as something like check to us?
Yes, ma'am.
It is basically that. My voice is not audible properly. Is that for everyone?
No, ma'am, you're audible.
Anjali beta, what you can do is you can try to rejoin the class. Sometimes this happens. You can leave and then rejoin. I'll allow you, don't worry. Then might be this issue which you're facing that my voice is not clearly audible to you. That will be sorted out. Can someone else inform Anjali about this arrangement? Because if my voice is not audible to her, then definitely she'll not be able to hear what I'm saying, what I'm trying to convey. Can someone of you inform her that she can do this? So yes, this was a similar pact as it was. It is with checks. Nowadays, what we do is we keep the money with the banks, and whenever we need to pay someone a huge amount of money, instead of carrying that money to the person, we try to give money through check. Now, whenever we are talking about any sort of paper currency, it refers to the notes which are issued by the State Bank of India or the central bank. So, this paper currency is something which is divided into three basic parts, or which can be of three different types. That is representative paper money, convertible paper money, and fiat paper money. Now, what are these representative, convertible, and fiat? Let's try to understand that. Now, representative paper money is the money that is fully backed up by equivalent metallic reserves. If we are talking about 100 rupees, then we are having that much of metallic reserve with us in the bank. If we are talking about 1,000, then we are having metallic reserve is like gold and silver. So this is the money which is backed up by that gold and silver. Why am I confused? Please just give me a moment. Okay, thank you. So the representative paper money is the money which is backed up. Then we are having the convertible paper money. This is something which is convertible into coins on demand, and it is also known as a full reserve system. It was adopted by India in 1927 to 1957. That whatever you want, it can fully be converted into coins.
Ma'am, can we say
Yes,
that coins are also convertible into money, into
coins
notes?
are money. Yes, they are convertible.
Okay, ma'am.
If you want the bank to convert them, they'll convert them. मना तो करने वाले नहीं है.
Yeah.
अगर हम एक एक रुपए के या दो रुपए के सिक्के बैंक को ले जाके देते हैं तो दे कन्वर्ट इट फॉर अस. They never deny. Okay, so then we are having fiat paper money. Now this is the money which is not convertible into gold or silver. This convertible money was the money which was converted into gold and silver, beta. Coins नहीं, अपना परचूरन नहीं है, एक दो रुपए के सिक्के नहीं. This was the full reserve system, in which if you're having any sort of money that could be converted into gold or silver. That was convertible paper money. Now, the last thing that we are using right now, that is the fiat paper money, which is not convertible into gold or silver on demand. If you even want to convert the money into gold or silver, you'll have to go to a goldsmith and they will convert it into gold or silver by taking it and giving you something in return. Can you convert today's money into gold or silver?
Ma'am, fiat paper money is not getting still.
Pardon me?
Fiat paper money
Huh?
is not getting, ma'am.
It is not convertible into gold and silver. You cannot ask the bank to convert this money into gold coins or silver coins for you. Up,
Now it's clear, ma'am.
okay, like you cannot take this 2 to 3 lakh rupees at the bank and tell them to convert it to gold. They'll not convert it. They'll deny कि अपने पैसे अपने पास रखो. But at the same time, if you want to get it converted, then you can buy gold coins or gold bars, silver coins or silver bars out of this money at any sort of jeweler or the people who are selling gold and silver. From there, you can get it converted, but you cannot get this fiat money, that is paper money, converted into gold and silver on demand by banks. They are not gonna convert it. So this is known as an inconvertible money. We can buy anything with it. आप चॉकलेट से लेके गोल्ड बार तक कुछ भी खरीद सकते हो फियाट पेपर मनी से, because it is accepted and because it is declared as legal tender by the issuing authority, and it is a generally acceptable means of medium of exchange. So you can buy whatever you want with this fiat money, but you cannot convert it. You cannot say that I'm having give me a rough figure, anyone. We're having some XYZ amount in our bank and it is just lying there, so now we want to convert it into money. Okay, chalo 50,000. We're having 50,000 in our account. We do not want 50,000 in our account. We want gold instead of it. Bank मना कर देगा. I'm not gonna give you anything. निकालने पैसे निकाल के चले जाओ. So that is what fiat paper money is. It is not readily convertible into gold, but yes, you can buy anything out of it. If you want to convert it into gold, you can go to a goldsmith or a jeweler or someone, and they'll convert your money into gold by giving you gold in return. They are not converting it, they are giving you gold in exchange of that amount. Okay, now it is high time and the links are off. Or I'll keep it on for 2 more minutes, then I'll turn it off. Inform your classmates that the link is on only for next 2 minutes. If they want to join the class, they can join. So the fundamental value of fiat money is basically nil, because whatever we are doing with the fiat money is we are making a bond out of it, that if you are holding this particular paper, the bearer of this particular paper, we owe the bearer this much amount. That is legally accepted, but by itself that paper holds no value. जितनी वैल्यू आपके किसी भी पेपर की है, any random paper, only that value that paper has. If it is not printed, it is printed and hence it is having a legal authority. It is declared as a legal tender by the issuing authority, so it is having a value. Else it wouldn't have had any value. Are we clear with this?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened, Dhruvi? You want to ask something, beta? बच्चे लिख के पूछ लो.
I was just saying yes, ma'am.
नहीं, you're not clear to me, and I cannot even leave the class and come back. You're clear, right? Say yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
Dhruvi, I'm asking about Dhruvi. Dhruvi, are you clear? No, I just was saying, okay, you were just saying yes, ma'am. Your voice is not properly audible to us, hence I was not able to understand. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. So the next type of money that we have is credit money. Okay, you withdrawing the money from bank account under your name. Is that credit money or money?
It's credit money, ma'am.
Okay.
At the time of loan, we withdraw the amount from the bank. It is credit money.
Mm-hmm.
No, ma'am, only money because we are taking from our account only. If we take a loan, then it is credit money, but if we take from our account, then it is our.
But here they are saying something else. Read the slide, you'll be able to see something else. See, Bacho, when we are talking about this money in literal terms, basically the money which you have saved for yourself in the bank can be termed as near money. Whereas if you are taking something in the face of checks or drafts or PO, then that is also termed as credit money. No doubt this is very safe, very convenient, easily convertible into cash, but it is considered as credit money. It is not basically money in itself. The amount which is kept in the bank can be termed as near money or credit money. It is not money.
Okay.
Are we clear?
Yes.
Any doubt, anyone? No one is having any doubt. Chalo, so we'll move ahead. Now, this is the last type of money. Anyone can give me an example to this? You generally give me example of
Yes,
electronic
ma'am.
money.
Can I?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Ma'am, that is a digital card like ATM card and all,
Mm-hmm. And,
or Phone Pay, Google. Sorry,
okay,
Phone Pay, Google Pay and all.
all the UPI apps, we can say.
Credit cards.
Okay. Anyone else?
Cryptocurrency.
Your bitcoins, cryptocurrency, UPI apps, everything can be termed as electronic money because it refers to the money or scripts which are exchanged only electronically. They are not having any physical existence. They are only transferred electronically, and they involve this use of computer networks, internet, digitally stored value system. Everything such is utilized in this sort of money, which is called an electronic money. So these are the basic different kinds of money which were there to be considered. That is commodity money, metallic money, paper money, credit money, and electronic money. Now, if there is anything out of these which you are having a little bit of any bit of difficulty in understanding, you can ask me in next 2 minutes. If you're not having, then we'll move ahead.
Clear, ma'am.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, can you explain that term equivalent metallic reserve?
Equivalent metallic reserve is better. The equal. Okay. Equivalent metallic reserve is when you're having an equal amount with the bank in face of metal also. That is called equivalent metallic reserve. Like if you are taking 100 rupees, if you are taking 100 rupees, then you have that much amount as metallic reserve in the bank.
Not getting, ma'am.
Mm. Okay, see what happens some of the times is this is like a incident in history. India was falling short of in, India's currency was going down like anything. So as a result, what the government did was they took some of their reserves, some of the gold reserves, and sold it in the general market general market so that they can get some money out of it, not Indian international market, so that they can get money out of it. That is what something which is backed by metallic currency. Why are they trying to enter? Didn't I tell you people that I'll be disabling the link? I told that in the class, right? Okay. Hmm. Like, how should I explain it? Money which is backed up by metal is okay. The money which you're having in your hand, that equal amount of metal are stored with the bank. If the bank is giving you 100, if a bank is giving you cash worth rupees 1 lakh, then that much amount of cash is that much amount of metal is kept with the bank as a reserve. That is what this something equivalent with metallic reserve is what about. This is called convertible money. When we are talking about this convertible money, in representative paper money, we say that this is backed up with metallic reserve. So that is what metallic reserve is. That if we are having 1 lakh rupees in hand, then the bank is having that much amount in metal in their reserve. Now clear?
Yes, ma'am. Clear. Thank you.
Okay. So shall we move ahead?
Yes,
Yes, Jitesh.
yes, ma'am, we can go.
So when we are able to understand what money is, what comes next into existence for us is the demand for money. Now, can anyone tell me what is actually the demand for money? What is the demand for money as per you people? Archie, inform her to come back. We'll let her in. What is the demand for money? Okay.
Ma'am, financial asset.
Pardon me?
Financial asset.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, yes. Okay, when we are talking about this theory of demand for money, what we are trying to do, we are trying to seek an answer to a very basic question which is there. And that basic question is what determines the demand for money in an economy? So, what do you think? What determines the demand for money in the economy?
Multiple needs.
Okay, and Archie, inform Jesvi to come back to the class. Okay, yes. See, basically, this question is like, what is money? N number of people are having the question, and we do not. But she'll have to come back. Archie, she'll have to try to join back. Only then we can log her in. This is like the same question that everyone is asking. What is money? No one knows. So here also, this that same problem is there. And the origin of this theory of demand for money is from that problem. And we are not having any particular definition for this demand for money. There are different theories which are which are given by different people, and every theory is holding in itself a different funda. So we are having n number of theories of money if we actually look in that way. Now, what happened with the demand theory of money was that there was a classical quantity theory of money which was traced down. The origin of the theory of demand for money can be easily traced in the classical theory of money. And this was the theory of money which was conceived by Jean Bodin, that he was a French philosopher. He was a French philosopher. He is the one who gave this theory of money. And that too, this theory was given in the year of 1568. That was in 16th century. Now, why did this French philosopher give this theory? He gave this theory for the purpose of understanding the price rise in contemporary France. That why is the prices of things rising in that particular region? So over a period of around about like 2 centuries, there have been n number of economists who have commented on the theory, who have contributed to the quantity theory of money. And now these economists were like John Locke, David Hume, David Ricardo, Irving Fisher. Irving Fisher was, however, the one who developed his own book. He was the one who has developed his own book on this theory of money. And that was his own version of the quantity theory of money. It was developed in the year of 1911 and was mentioned in his book named Purchasing Power of Money. So this is like the most famous version of the quantity theory of money because it represents the classical approach to the analysis of this relationship between the quantity of money and the price level. That is why it is one of the most important one because it gives you the exact relationship what a person is having between the demand of money and the price level. Now, the neoclassical version of quantity theory of money is known as, we can name it as we can name it as Cambridge cash balance equation, or we can name it as Pigu's cash balance equation, whatever you want, because there were different names which were given to this theory of money as Cambridge and Pigu's cash balance equation. Now, when we are talking about this relationship, because all the versions of the quantity theory of money are, in one way or the other, demonstrate that there is a strong relationship between money and price level. So, what we'll do is, first of all, we'll try to discuss the Fisher's quantity theory of money, and after that, we'll be having a brief description of the Cambridge versions of quantity theory of money. So, let me take you to the Fisher's quantity theory of money. Now, this Fisher's version of the quantity theory of money, or if I originally try to name it, or as it is originally called, it is the quantity theory of exchange. It is also mentioned in your syllabus that we'll be going through the Fisher's quantity theory of exchange. So this is that theory. Now, what I want you people to do is, in this in these slides, at n number of places, n number of equations are mentioned. So I want you people to note down those equations so that you can have a detail of what means what. So the first equation which was formally expressed by Fisher in his theory was,
Ma'am,
yes,
Preet is not able to join the class. He left by mistake.
tell him to join.
Yes, ma'am.
He should not mark his presence after that. On that term, and just because you are telling me because that he has left, I'm allowing him to join. You should not mark his attendance after that. Because that is the first condition which I'm having, that anyone who is joining the class, they are requested to mark their attendance then and there. Tell him to join. Okay, so it was formally expressed as MB is equal to sigma PQ. Now, till now, we are not aware what is M, what is V, what is P, what is Q. So, what Fisher did was he simplified this version, and he mentioned his equation as MV is equal to PT by giving the detailed description of what stands for what. Okay, so now what I want you people to do is, now what I want you people to do is, you have to note down what is standing for what. That is, here in the slide, if you have mentioned MB is equal to PT, in the next slide, we are having the detail of everything. They are requested to please note down the details, and that is, with respect to symbols which are used in equation 1 and 2, the detail is described, and that is to be taken down. Here M will represent the quantity of money in circulation, what money is going on in circulation at that point of time. V refers to the transaction velocity of money, that is the number of time a unit of money is used in the transaction, or in other words, the number of time the unit of money has changed hands as per the unit of time, the number of hands which the unit of money has changed. Then the next one is sigma PQ. Now sigma PQ, in sigma PQ, P stands for something and Q stands for something else. P stands for the output of individual commodities. Sorry, Q stands for the output of individual commodities, and P stands for their prices respectively. I've mentioned P1, P2, P3, P4. So all the Qs are standing for the respective output, and P standing for the prices respectively. Then we are having capital P. Capital P represents the weighted average of all the individual prices, and that is P is equal to MV divided by T. Then T means the sum of all the transaction of goods and services per unit of time, which includes the transaction velocity of goods and services also. So you're requested to please note this down, and once you are done, tell me. I did not tell anyone to leave the meeting. I'm going to continue after this. Why are these people leaving? They thought that the lecture is over. Oh. Basically, half of the class is coming in the class only for the purpose of attendance. They're not bothered what is taught, which is not only disheartening but demeaning also. Okay, so we'll move ahead. Now, what happened with Fisher's equation is, he modified his earlier version of quantity theory of money that was given. Okay, he modified his earlier version of quantity theory, which he has mentioned in this equation 2, as you can see, MV is equal to PT, to include the money supply which is created by the banks also in the process of credit creation based on their demand deposits or checks, whatever is there. So this equation was further expanded. How it was expanded? Till now we are having the equation of MV is equal to PT. Now for further expansion, what happened is that the money supply and the number of times the checks change hands from one person to another was also taken into consideration, and we added M dash V dash to it. So now the equation became that the third equation which came into existence, as you can see on your slide, there is a third equation. MV plus M dash V dash is equal to PT. Please note down all the equations because you'll be able to derive the quantity theory equation only when you are having all these equations with you. MV plus M dash V dash is equal to PT when M dash and V dash are the total bank deposits subject to transfer by checks and average velocity of their circulation. Basically, M is the total bank deposit subject to transfer by checks and V is the average velocity of their circulation. In general, the formula or the equation which is used is the second equation only that we are using for quantity theory of money, but the reality is this, that M dash V dash are holding a very important part of the theory of this quantity theory of money, because nowadays mostly all the cash is something which is lying in the banks only. So with this, we'll move ahead towards towards the uses of this quantity theory of money. We are aware that the Fisher's quantity theory of money is there. Now, what is the use of that? Here, the classical quantity theory of money is very simple, but it has two very important theoretical implications, which constitutes two very important aspects in the classical macroeconomics, especially with this quantity theory of money. What it yields for the classical macroeconomics is it has two theories for the classical macroeconomics, and they are the classical theory of price level and the classical theory of demand for money. Apparently, the classical theory of demand for money is something which was not mentioned by Fisher, but it includes a very important part of his theory. So that will be included in this also. So in order to understand that what this classical theory of price level is, what is the classical theory of demand for money, what we'll do is we'll try to understand them one by one. But that we'll not do today, because the quantity theory of money is used to derive the theories of price level and demand for money. So we have to understand these price level and demand for money in order to understand the quantity theory. But this understanding is something which is not going to take place with you today. We'll stop over here itself. And we'll meet again in your next class. Okay? If you're having any doubt regarding anything that we have done today, you can put up the question. No one is having any doubt? Okay.